Park Board of St. John to order. Could we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Tyler, if you do the roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mike Bovat,
Here.
Mike Moffett,
Here.
Johnny Boersma,
Here.
Pat Connolly is absent. I am here. Wayne Pondinas.
Here.
And I'm sorry,
Item number
Craig,
three on.
Craig is here too. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Switching over meetings.
Yeah.
all right. Are we good, Mr. Tyler?
Yep, we're good.
Item number three, approval of minutes, and you want to comment on that, Mr. Tyler?
Yeah, that will have to be deferred to next month. Where the town is still trying to get a recording secretary. They've advertised the position, and they're still trying to get one hired.
Understood. At the moment, we do not have meeting minutes. We'll move to item 4, new business. Consider approval of application materials for full-time maintenance position. Mr. Tyler, could you comment on this?
Yeah, so this would be an additional maintenance position that is included in our 2021 budget. It's again, a new position, so the job description was created from scratch. That should be included in your packet. Essentially, this position would work under the direct supervision of Gabe, and it would be another person to perform all the needed maintenance work in our parks. It would it's going to be especially helpful once we get into spring and summer when with our seasonal employees on board. Essentially we could have 2 crews working in tandem, one with Gabe and one with this position. So like I said, the announcement and the job description is included in your packet. I set a tentative application deadline for January 15th. I was just thinking with holidays and some vacation time coming up in the next month or so, it could be good to leave a little extra time, especially after you get after the first of the year, to leave a couple weeks for, potential applicants to get their information in.
I think that's good. I'd like to piggyback on that also, and in the 5-year plan that we recently studied, and most of you are familiar with, one of the deficiencies within the park board was adding another employee, and so we've been deficient, and we need to get that addressed and taken care of, and this would be for the 2021 calendar year, isn't that right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay. After that, would there be any other comments? Any questions?
I'm good.
And then I would like to ask the board to consider approval of application for material for a full-time maintenance position.
I'll make a motion to approve the application materials for full-time maintenance position.
Second.
Tyler, can we get a roll call?
That's a motion by John Boersman, a second by Mike Moffett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So that motion carries 3-0. And just a reminder, with only 3 members here tonight, every decision will have to be unanimous.
Thank you for that. New business, B, request to purchase additional park truck. You could comment on that also, Mr. Tyler?
Yeah, so that's also included in your packet, the price that we received from Bozak Ford for the amount of $36,208. This was another item that was approved in our 2021 budget. It was in the budget, or approved for next year for $43,000 up to that amount. So at this price point, we still have room to get a plow and other needed attachments. We did obtain 3 quotes, and this quote came in about $1,500 cheaper with the same specifications.
Okay. Any questions or comments? All right. Request to purchase additional park truck.
I'll make a motion to purchase an additional park truck.
I'll second that.
Mr. Tyler, can we get a roll call?
That's a motion by Johnny Borsman, a second by Mike Moffett. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So that motion carries.
New business, item C, consider placement of gate at Heartland Park.
Yeah, so this was one of the items that was discussed at Thursday's study session. It would be a barrier gate at Heartland Park that would essentially close access to the western side of the park during the baseball program's off-season, when there's basically no reason for anybody to be back there. There's a quote in your packet from Fence Masters for the amount of $1,915. And I guess, Gabe, you had some ideas on how we could potentially perform that work in-house. If you want to comment on that.
I'm not too sure, but we do have some fence equipment that we could repurpose, depending on the measurements. If they meet the specs to go across that drive for the entrance of the parking lot, we could repurpose that and then maybe save some costs. But if they don't, if the gate is not long enough, then we would have to forego that idea. I have not had a chance to take any measurements or do any of the like homework to give you guys the answer, and I apologize for that. So that's all I have.
I think
That's fine.
I would rather go that route first. I mean, you always have a second option, which is right here, but
Mike, what was the length again? I think you vaguely told me.
In the bid, it was a 24-foot.
Okay, I'm not too sure again of that fence. It could be anywhere from 16 to 20, maybe. I'm not sure.
The 16 wouldn't work, obviously.
Right,
Because you'd be
correct.
blocking half the road.
So I'd have to go measure it. I mean, it's behind the shop. I mean, so we have it on hand. So basically, we just need to buy 2 posts, 3 posts, something like that, to make it work. If it's long enough. If not, then it's not long enough.
This one was pretty much measured where you got a post in each corner of of that opening. I don't have a
That
picture
roadway?
of that roadway.
Yeah.
So it's right where the road actually goes that way. So you have a post on each side, and a gate would close that off so people wouldn't be able to drive through there with their vehicles. That's kind of the idea, like what he was saying. You know, there's 2 dumpsters back there. They get full of, we get couches, we get desks, everything get thrown back there. The neighbor came up to me when I was out there one day working, and he's like, do you think the town would ever think about putting a gate up out here? He's like, in the wintertime, because kids are back there, they're drag racing, they sit back there parking, they have their music on really loud. He said, for some reason, it's mostly during the off-season, but that's because during the season, there's always people there till 10:30 at night.
How urgent is this as far as like, what are we looking at if we tabled this, maybe came back? Is that something they can maybe get into in December too, if we?
Yeah, you can do it anytime.
I mean, we could put some kind of barrier there for now, right?
No, they won't put anything there, but, I mean, I thought he said a gate was 16. That's what he thought it was, but, I mean, we could table it, till whenever.
Yeah.
Is it one gate that just swings this, or is it 2 that's?
It's one.
That's one.
It'd be one gate, similar to the one in the back of Lake Central,
Okay.
that for
By
the auto
Sesame
shop.
Street?
It's not the rolling gate, but
Right.
they have another one there by the auto shop that
Right.
they put in when all that stuff happened at
It's
the auto
like
shop.
triangular. It starts out like this
Exactly.
and tapers.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Fence Masters, I went to the school, Fence Masters are the ones that put it in theirs, 'cause theirs it came out very good, because you have the gate, when it opens, there's a latch there that catches
Yeah,
it.
okay.
Because I think
Well,
from a
then
we
we-
should do it right. I mean, we could always build it out of 2x4.
Just have it done professionally.
You can't do alternative motions.
I was gonna ask you about that. So would that,
To put this out in any form of, deferring to Gabe to measure and make the call on whether or not it would fit and be appropriate, and if so, may proceed, and if not, as a secondary option, if that did not work, to
go ahead and,
either approve, so it'd be a conditional improvement, whatever other action you want to take.
okay. I think that's what we probably need to do, like you say there, Johnny. We can move forward if Gabe goes out and investigates and finds out that perhaps he can get it done, and it's, he can amend his equipment and get it to fit in there, and we're open to that, but if that's not gonna be feasible, so I'd like to place a consideration to the placement of the gate at Heartland Park on the condition that Gabe's equipment doesn't fit there. If that equipment that he could amend doesn't fit, then we would move forward with the gate from Fence Masters. Is there a motion for that? Big mouthful of stuff there.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
It's a motion by Johnny Boersma, a second by Mike Moffett. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So that alternative motion carries.
New business, item D, considered needed decking at Heartland Park, Babe Ruth Field.
So this was another item that was discussed at Thursday's study session. The press box decking at the Babe Ruth Field is unsafe and was never built to code to begin with, and it needs replaced and made compliant with town codes. I believe Vice President Moffett met with the building inspector and came to that conclusion. In your packet, there's two options to replace the decking. One with treated lumber for the amount of $8,200, and one with composite material in the amount of $17,600. I believe the treated lumber option would need painted or stained every 2 years, from what Mike said, and then the composite option would be more permanent and not require much maintenance at all once it's put in. And if I may make an additional comment, we're kind of near the bottom of our budget for 2020. I think maybe for next month's meeting, we kind of get a list or finalize our list of projects for 2021 and maybe figure out how to work this in, whatever the board decides tonight. Because right now, like I said, we're getting to the end of the funds we have available.
Well, this is something that could be put off till next year anyways, because obviously baseball season's over, so.
Right.
But, I mean, I'm a fan of the composite, so, I mean, that's the option. I would rather go maintenance-free and it lasts forever.
Just for the record, whatever, let it be known that the railing is broke. If someone does lean on it and falls off, I don't know if we should try to get the town out there or somebody temporary to fix the railing, because, I mean, it's, the pictures I sent, I thought I sent it to you guys. You can see where it's not even fastened on the bottom.
Right.
There's several things are bad about that. It was put in 18 years ago by, the town put it in, but when they put it in, they just threw it up. They didn't go by any codes. Put on, the concrete actually is on a steep angle. They put it right on top of that. That is big time against code, because it's supposed to be drilled into the concrete. It's supposed to be on, bases. The steps, the rises aren't to the right thing. The railings, there's a minimum of like 36 or 48 inch, whatever it is, the minimum, they're not at the minimum of that. And that was what the town code, not code enforcer, but building inspector, he goes, this can't be fixed, this has to be redone. He's like, because it could be temporary fixed, but it needs to be replaced.
Right.
And again, this doesn't have to be done right now, but I think we need to get that railing fixed temporarily. And also on this Schilling Construction, they also looked at it. They just came in with they came in with I think it was $2,700 bid just to fix it. Basically, they're gonna rebuild the railing, just fix it, power wash it, paint it, but that would be just temporary.
Right.
They didn't know we wanted to redo the whole thing. They said they could come in, they said, they threw some numbers. It sounded like they might actually be under this price. So I think either way, we should wait either way to see what their prices come in at, because they might even be cheaper than this. Gabe brought up an idea, possibly the lumberyard can give it to us at cost,
Okay.
which might bring some of the price down.
Well, when you say the lumberyard, are you talking about the composite or no?
Either way,
Yeah.
either way. And that's, I don't know if, somebody has a connection there that they could talk to, maybe see if we can't, knock off a little bit of the lumber once we decide to do this. And those are different ways we could, bring down the cost of the project.
Well, let me ask you this. We're not doing anything with that facility right now, right? I mean, nothing's gonna happen until spring, pretty much. Or are people accessing that now, or no?
There's people working there right now. I mean, they have another, less than a week left, then they'll be done working. Because they're doing a $52,000 renovation of the field right now, but they're not using the press box. They're not in that area. We could put yellow caution tape up, completely close it
Right,
off.
because my thought was maybe if Gabe, you could help us out, maybe restrict that area, make it inaccessible with some signs and some tape. That way, no one should be going up there at all. If it's not up to code, and if it's not safe, we shouldn't be using it.
That's kind of what I'm trying to push for the railing part of it. We need, and it's almost not to the point where you can come in and just put a new 4x4, because that 4x4 should have been in the concrete, never was. That's one reason why it's, all loose.
Yeah. I think we should just restrict access to it, Mike. Just, if it's not safe, if we're gonna spend money on it, we're just for another week, just tell them just to hold off. I'm not gonna be able to use it. And then we can do it right in the spring, get the other cost, and move forward from there. What do you think, Johnny?
I agree.
You think you can get that area restricted, Abe? Yes. You got stuff to do it?
Yes.
I appreciate that, thank you for that. Under those conditions, why don't we just table item C? I'm sorry, item D, the decking at Heartland Park, Babe Ruth Field. Do we need to take a motion on that, Ms. Nicole, to table that, or can we just table it? Okay, I'm going to recommend item D for new business, that we consider tabling this.
I will make a motion to table item D.
Second that.
That's a motion by Johnny Boersma, second by Mike Moffett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
New business, item E, review of park rules.
Yeah, so this is sort of a housekeeping type item. Included in your packet, I have a list of rules that are on our website, as well as a list of rules that have been published in our program guides in the past. So for some reason, there's not much overlap between the two. Additionally, I believe only one of the rules listed on both the website and in the guide are in the town ordinance. And that is a rule that prohibits non-residents from fishing in water under our jurisdiction. So one of the, an ongoing project here in the next few months would be to create a standard list of park rules and then get them established in the ordinance so they can be enforced. And I had a brief conversation with Nicole about this earlier. And I also think we should, or I should reach out to the police department as well to get their input before any of this is finalized, just because they're going to be the primary enforcement of these rules. Because we unfortunately don't have a park ranger that patrols the parks at all hours.
Well, we can hire Moffett for that.
He's willing. I was going to just ask if, Ms. Nicole, could you comment on some guidance on like what typically would be the way to approach this, and if you could comment, please?
I can. I think that, and Tyler and I have kind of had some preliminary talks about this. I think the first place to start would be, oh, I am. Sorry. I think your first place to start would be to kind of establish the list of rules that you want to actually enforce. And I would just clarify a bit with that this is not, what I'm referring to as a rule is something that you would look to want to codify as into an ordinance that would be enforced through a ticketing process that would actually go through the court procedures. So for that purpose, obviously, it's cognizant of what are the other ordinances. For example, anything in the code relating to, dog running loose, dog bites, immunizations, things of that nature, is going to apply throughout the town, right? So there's not the added requirement in that respect of having to put out park rules that say that, hey, all dogs have to be on a leash, or dogs are not allowed in certain areas, whatever it may be. So it's kind of overlapping in some of those things, but an idea of what you actually want your law enforcement officers to enforce. This is not going to be more in-house rules or, things that perhaps are considered by the softball fields or baseball rules, anything of that nature, but ones that actually you want to have as a procedure through the courts. And that's always something that we can talk about, of what can be enforced that way and what can't, because some things just are not able to in that respect. For example, your fishing for non-residents.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You can't prohibit, in and out of residence in that regard. Obviously, you want to put out licenses. You want to make people have to get things of that nature, yes. But I think the best place to start is just kind of to put forth that list of rules, and then we can go through that from a standpoint of what can be enforced and what cannot. I think that Tyler has an excellent idea in reaching out to the law enforcement, because that is who will be the ones driving through there during daytime hours or nighttime hours to actually have the enforcement. You clearly don't want to be bogging the police down with extraneous rules that is not or are not going to be enforced. And likewise, I think you can also hear from your law enforcement officers, what are the complaints they're getting? What are the calls that they're getting for? Is it just people in the park after dark? Is it, kids parking? Is it, just loiterers in that sense? Is there a problem with interfering with ball games? Is there interactions of, things of that nature? People parking in the wrong place. We've heard some discussions of some of that. Because then your next step in not only identifying what you want to put out as violations is going to be obviously then a comparison of fines that you would want proposed as part of those ordinances that kind of fit in line with perhaps the other fine schedule for the town. And then obviously posting for, especially since there hasn't been set park rules by ordinance. Tyler's kind of pointed out that there's a kind of different rules for different parks that are posted right now and some that aren't posted at all. So then that would kind of be the next step to identify, what those are. I think the biggest issue then is the consistency between what's in the ordinance, what's posted, what's in your park brochures, all of that. That always seems to be, in many towns, an ongoing problem, is just those inconsistencies. So I think it's kind of the step-by-step through the process, but I think first and foremost is just perhaps kind of freely
Identifying,
yeah, just kind of spitballing, if you will, some rules that you want to put out, and then it's narrowing and talking about those in more detail of what can actually be enforced and what is perhaps just social etiquette that we're hoping everybody follows.
I definitely see the need for what Tyler's talking about also. I think we do need defined park rules per se. May not be
They can't be enforced, though, so they're really irrelevant in that
Guidelines.
sense.
kind of like, courtesies, that type of thing. I see that.
Sure, the picking up after you, the trash, that kind of stuff, yes.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
But let me ask you this then, in your experience with other communities, have you defined and set up have you worked out some
Oh, yeah.
legal?
Absolutely.
She's like, oh, yeah.
Statutorily, the ones that can be enforced, and often the big ones are park after dark. There's some parks in some places that you want to have lights on, and you want to invite people to be walking in the trails or bike paths or open area more for, perhaps it's just pedestrian ways or people sitting on benches, whatever that you're fine with. And there's others that, you might not be gated, but you don't want people in and parking, at nighttime for safety concerns. That's a big one that's enforced. Another is different parking. That's a very common from community to community, parking on the grass, parking up on curbs,
Yeah.
pulling up onto bike paths, things of that nature. Those would be the two, I would say, the most common ones. The one thing I would just point out or make you aware of at this point, so you're contemplating as you're putting consideration into how much work you want to put into this. The enforceability is going to be a ticket, okay? It's going to be a citation that is then going to go through the court process. If someone doesn't show up for court, or they don't follow whatever requirements the court has put out, it's going to be a finding of liable or a default and a fine.
And a driver's license suspension.
No, that's exactly where I was going.
That happened
The
to
only
me.
thing by law, by Indiana law, that can be suspended, or that can cause a driver's license to be suspended, is a driving offense. Parking a car is not a driving offense. It's a parking offense. In a park after dark, not a driving offense. So there's not the pull. There's not that's always the incentive, right? To have people
Is it
follow
wrong-
rules and have people pay fines.
Did Indiana change that? Because I believe 10, 15 years ago, Indiana was a civil judgment state.
Well, it still is civil judgment, but it's just that, it's a judgment.
Okay.
So for purposes of getting it for traffic, there can't be the suspension for that violation. What you're thinking of is the judgments that are related to car accidents, that are judgments as a result of, you can't suspend someone's driver's license for a medical bill.
What about not putting up a fence around a pool in time?
Nope.
Oh, okay, it happened to me.
Yeah, it very well could have been. I'm not sure if when that law changed, but it's specifically, it is a specific statute that specifically states that. It's not even one of those, it's an interpretation in that
Okay.
regard. So that's the one consideration, and that's always the question, right, is if you can't get to somebody's driver's license, you clearly, nobody's going to jail on an ordinance violation. So it's expecting people to follow rules and take care of their, tickets if issued and pay appropriately. But if not, you can link it to other things in the town. You're not going to give them a park pass for other things. They don't get, building permits if they have outstanding fines in the town. They don't, dog tags, whatever it may be, that you can link within your own system. But I just point that out because sometimes that does weigh in how much time and energy you want to put into it too. I would say as the most part, most responsible citizens take care of their, tickets like that. But there's always going to be that handful.
We made a joke, but it's really not a joke to me, but because I have heard talk before. But we have volunteers in this town, right? Park rangers as volunteers. You got retired people.
They would have to be authorized by law in a position as,
Okay.
in that capacity, as specifically what would fall under the compass of code enforcement, which can then be park enforcement and/or law enforcement.
I just think that'd be a good idea. You got people that are retired and got nothing to do. They could drive around in golf carts to the parks, keep an eye out, and word gets around that these park rangers drive around. It just might deter
Golf carts are
some.
legal in the town.
Huh?
Golf carts are illegal.
I'm going to make a motion at the town council about that one.
But
But
that would be
it's just-
something that would be to employ those people in that capacity, potentially but to give that authority, it can't, fall into the capacity as a volunteer. It's a great idea. Unfortunately, the law won't allow.
Yeah, there was rumors about it, and I'm like, that's kind of a good idea, but makes sense.
Well, that's intriguing. I mean,
Kind of a public or community policing in that sense that can actually, they can ask nicely. They can't ticket.
Or like a park narc. Okay, I'm done.
But I think that's probably your first place, is just kind of to start forming those lists and then kind of narrowing from there. One of the best places to start, I think, is looking at other towns.
Sure.
kind of benchmark, could you recommend somebody or, Munster, wait,
I would probably cross-reference some different ones. Some are, Munster, for example, has a park after dark with a fine of $500. I can tell you right now, the courts never impose it because nobody's going to pay it. So it's equivalent to zero, right? It's never going to happen. And because there's no teeth to it, it doesn't get paid. So there's always that push of wanting to like really tack on these fines, but realistically, it's not, you know, it doesn't do the job that you're looking for. You'll see a lot of towns that it's kind of some of the things, like Mike was saying there of whether it's, you know, the exclusion of, some of them are archaic, but it's the exclusion of, you know, skateboarding in town, or Lowell used to have one that there was no ball game of any kind allowed to be played except in a designated field. That literally kids would be ticketed for playing catch in an open green space.
Yeah.
I mean, so in that sense, I think that you can, looking at other towns, you can get a lot of good guidance, but they all need some revisions in that regard, you
Okay.
know, and it really kind of fits to what you want, you know, specifically in that place. But I really do think that it's, a lot of it's just looking at other ordinances for park.
Yeah, this might be a little bit broad, and we can kind of maybe narrow it down, but obviously we need it, you know, we need it. And,
By no means would I be looking at it from the standpoint of reinventing the wheel. There's a lot of great, you know, you just start
Yeah.
stealing from other places what you like, and you copy them
sure.
and figure out what you you know, do and don't, and then we tweak from there.
Under those considerations, I'd like to just make a consideration that we table review of park rules at this time, item E.
I will make a motion to table the review of the park rules.
I'll second it.
Tyler?
That's a motion by Johnny Boersma, a second by Mike Moffett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Moving to number 5 on the list for the agenda, old business. A, Prairie West parking lot expansion. If you can comment on that, Mr. Tyler.
Yes, following up on this item that's been discussed at a few previous meetings. So in your packet, it was the initial plan to create 68 new parking spaces at Prairie West for an amount just under $270,000. This would have brought the total amount of parking at Prairie West to 118. There's about 50 parking spots there currently. The plan was amended when bad soils were found, and the town engineers recommend the removal and replacement of 3 feet of soil to bridge the bad soils and then install a geotextile fabric and underdrain system. The cost for that work was $90,565.66. And then with the amended project, there'd be additional engineering work needed that could be up to $21,800. The town council discussed the additional engineering work for the amount up to $21,800 at their meeting on October 28th. And they deferred that specific request and the project in general to our board. As you can see, the project is now approaching $400,000, which if you do the math is around $5,800 per parking space. So I guess we need to discuss where we're at with this now and decide if we want to move forward with the project given the updated cost.
I have one question, Mr. Cole. What are the legal ramifications if we do not follow through with allowing them to do the work and we, as the town, do the work ourselves?
Well, first and foremost, for purposes of doing it yourself, obviously, once you're hitting that, you know, $150,000 benchmark, regardless, it has to go out for bid. It's not something that the town can do in-house. As for the following the advice or guidance of the professionals that, you know, the town is contracting with and asking for assistance, if you are making a conscious decision at any point to go against what your or not heed the advice of your professional services, then my advice in that situation is always going to be to distinctly lay out what and why are the reasons in which you're not following their advice, so that this is a conscious, thoughtful decision, and not something, you know, merely based in that sense on cost alone. If that's the situation, then I would more likely propose that you abandon the project and find an alternative, way of spending the money or using the grounds, whatever it may be.
I mean,
But-
5,000 for a parking spot, that's, oof. Tyler, can I ask who oversees the project here in the town? I mean, it just seems like it's, a cost, an extra cost, an extra cost. Who in the town here oversees what they're doing as far as like the boring of the, how do we know that it's actually bad and they have to add another? Because this is a crazy amount of money. Crazy for parking spots, just my opinion. But who oversees it all, do you know?
So I believe the first board meeting I attended was in August. I think that the additional soil borings were discussed at that meeting and approved by the board. And then when they went and did perform those additional borings, that's when the bad soils were found.
If I may, I would just, and I understand your concern in that sense regarding the legitimacy of it. If that's the concern or not trusting the work that was done, then my advice would be is you get a second opinion. Otherwise, that's the nature of your professional services. If the town has to follow around behind to make sure that the professional company actually bored where they said they did or took.
That's kind of what I was asking, like who made
And
sure that
tested.
they were doing the proper work? And
Because you hire them and pay them for that, and that's, and it's, it's a professional, so that's what I'm saying, is if that's a concern, then I would propose you get a second opinion, because you're calling on somebody for an expertise. Unless someone in the town has that expertise, those credentials, the licensing, all of that, them following around to determine if they're doing it correctly isn't really going to give you a whole lot of information there. It's going to have to be someone the equivalent standards in that regard. That's the point of, that's why you don't have to bid professional services. You hire who you want, because
right.
you're relying on that expertise in that sense.
So so they were already paid for their services up to date. So,
Believe so.
but so,
The soil borings and all that, those were paid for.
There may be some outstanding bills.
Sure, that are still coming.
so ethically though, if we decided, hey, look, we got to save some money here. We're not going to go with your project. Can you give us the advice to do it ourselves? Is that
We can't
something?
do that anyway, because you have the cost. It's not a job that can be done in-house,
Okay.
because of what the bid amount is, because of the amount of funding for that. By law, anything over 150,000 has to be bid.
Okay.
It's not something that can be done as an in-house project. However, that's why, back to your original question of if the decision was to not abide by what your engineers are saying, then, like I said, it would just be going through the process of making that as a thoughtful, knowledge-based decision, and whether or not that's hearing from the engineers and asking them questions, being able to kind of get their opinion specifically on breaking that apart, on where, if anything, costs can be trimmed at all, and likewise, what are the consequences of that scaling back? How long as they're talking about through their reporting about premature deterioration, breakdown in the soil, breakdown of the saturation or things
Right.
being too wet, all of that, of what the consequences are in that, so then you're making that decision accordingly, and that you're not doing it just based upon, numbers in that or
Right. Well, thank you for enlightening me a little more.
Well, I think if that's the case, if that's something you really, I know they have in their proposal, at least for one of them, about coming to meetings or answering questions, is that you have one of the engineers in, or, have them on Zoom to be able to ask questions and find out, what about this? What about this? What if we do or don't do this? What's the consequences? And hear from your experts.
I'd like to ask you a question, Nicole. In light of that information, would it be possible then to, let's say, as the park board and town, if we said, hey, okay, we're gonna cancel this project, so then there is no bid, we've kind of canceled it. Let's say, is there a time frame where we can come back and reconsider it
Sure.
and look at it ourselves and say, hey, you know what, maybe we do need to do something, maybe this is something we should do in-house. Is that an option if we cancel everything, or how
Well,
we go
what
about it?
where you're sitting at right now in part is timing. One of the things that they are laying out in all of their reporting is on the unfavorable or rather the favorable conditions for doing this in sometime between late spring and early fall. And that any point after that, where we're at now, is not the best or the most conducive timing because of moisture in the ground, all of that. So to some degree, I think by the mere nature of it, it can be something that, by the mere nature of the timing, this would be something that even if you were considering on taking action on, let's say all the details worked out, that at the earliest you'd be looking at, probably March or April anyway. So you, I think, naturally have some built-in time there to make those decisions. But again, if for the size of the project alone, even on its, earlier side at $230,000 or $260,000 is still something that would have to go out to bid. It's not something that can be done in-house.
And that's the law.
Yeah, anything over 150. And to break it down, in something less than that is, doesn't get around it, unfortunately, unless you're going to downsize that parking lot completely, where then it's a much smaller area versus the
Do it in phases.
68 spaces or something, in that respect. Yeah, I mean, that's the possibility. The issue there just becomes that it's legitimately, it's not something you can do now and then a month later do another section to avoid the bidding. It doesn't get around that way. But again, I still go back to, based upon having this report now, I would, my advice would be to have your engineers available to ask the questions that you want to ask and get the answers and make those determinations. Now that you have this information of the consistency of the soil and the risks for drainage, the risks for premature deterioration, to, if it's abandoning it completely, that's one thing. But even if it's on a smaller scale or phased, in that respect, you have this knowledge now of what the problems are, and with that, you have the responsibility in which to, exhaust that and answer questions or ask questions and get answers to them before proceeding with some other development on that land.
Okay. In light of those circumstances, I'm inclined to just maybe table this also and just, or what's your guys' thoughts?
Definitely.
Yeah. In light of the information and what we're looking at right now for the Prairie West parking lot expansion, I'm going to recommend that we consider tabling this to a later date.
I'll make a motion to table the Prairie West parking lot expansion to a later date.
I'll second that.
That's a motion by Johnny Boersma, second by Mike Moffett. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
When we table it, do we have to bring it up like in the next meeting? How does that work when you table it? Is it like, no matter what, you have to bring it up, or is it?
Table it, yes, it's coming up on your agenda. In that sense, if you, at some point or at any point, you can remove it as an agenda item. But if it's something as kind of ongoing consideration, then yes, it's gonna show up, as that. And, even taking no action or deciding to take no action, it's just deciphering whether or not that's an ongoing table or whether or not it's actually kind of closing the door on it where then it's removing it. So it's really just kind of your call and what you want to do. You can table something out further as a longer period. You want to table this to February, then it's out there and it appears then on your February agenda. Otherwise, it just isn't open and it comes back each month.
Thank you.
Moving to old business, number 5, item B, community garden project. Mr. Tyler, did you have any comments on that?
Yes, sir. Just to provide an update on this, so at the August 18th board meeting, we had the representatives from the Community Garden Committee in town attend to present a proposal for a community garden. At that time, they were targeting Heartland Park as a location. At the end of the meeting, the board asked for me to kind of be the point person for them as they work through the early stages of the project. Like I said, the location that was discussed at the meeting was Heartland Park and the parcel of land where a house was previously located. Wayne and I met with Public Works Director Bobby Davis at that location to discuss the project and assess, how viable that location was going to be. And it was determined that providing water to that location could be a challenge. The water main is located across the street. The town would have to contract out the boring. As we were standing there discussing where to go from there, we kind of had the idea to potentially look at Patno Park as an alternate location, which is right across the street. In your packet is an overhead shot of the park with the tentative location for the garden in the blue box there is what we had in mind. That location has convenient access to water, and if the project proves to be successful, there's clearly room to grow as well. Also, when you're attached to that image was the tentative budget that the committee submitted that night that kind of outlines the expenses and potential revenues of the project.
So for the expenses, and this is applying to both parks if we did this, right? As far as like the perimeter fence, that's what they're looking at.
This would just apply the location for consideration at this point would be the Patno Park location. As the other location just didn't seem like it was going to work.
So total cost would be 14,140. Is that what they're saying?
That would be the net. The high end that they're proposing here would be $16,040 based on their budget. This is a group that is willing. They're committed. They submitted their proposal. They're putting a timeline together. They're going to assist with the fundraising involved here the next few months before this really gets off the ground. Additionally, as you can see, the projected revenue on the high end could be up to $1,600, which would help cover the operating expenses at $40 per bed for the 40 beds. There's also some community involvement opportunities with this project. We've had a local Eagle Scout reach out to us that has expressed interest in helping in any way he could, and then potentially making some of the beds necessary. The number that he had mentioned was 10 of the raised beds, which would be about $2,000 worth of that expense.
Is labor in here?
No.
And who's building these?
So that would be something we'd have
I
to
know you
work.
just said that kid would do 10 of them
Sure,
or something.
yeah. That would be something we'd have to work through. Maybe we can help solicit volunteer support. The idea was to approach some of the local businesses to see about donation of lumber. But yeah, the idea was just to try to solicit community involvement for this project.
One thing I'm worried about is if you don't have one, like a company, not that we want to get a company because that would be expensive, but you kind of want to build good.
Sure.
You have someone coming in that's never used a hammer or a nail in their life and they're trying to put this together, it's going to be,
And you want them all to be the
you want them all to
same.
be the same. You want to be able to look at, the fence is going to hide it, so you wouldn't really be from the outside. But even when you're in there, you kind of want it all to look the same. That's only, and I think I brought this up the first time when who's putting it together.
Right. So in their proposal, they had a template for the box that had a standard wood that was going to be used and a standard design as well. So that could be something that if anyone expressed interest in helping, you know, that they could follow that template and that design.
And that's what I mean, about like who's laying it out, who's saying this is exactly where you're putting it, who's gonna make sure they're putting them all square and not every, so it seems like there's a lot not here about the
I
design.
think I have that other one.
I didn't include, I mean, that was like a 12-page document. I mean, I can resend that to the board because a lot of those questions are answered in that proposal. That's what they presented on August 18th, and that proposal was included in your packets at that meeting.
They had it all the specs were laid out.
Right.
The
I do
size
remember that.
boxes,
So
the
that
distances.
group's gonna be overseeing the whole thing then.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they were going to drive the whole thing. And like I said, I've worked with groups before on other projects where, you know, they throw an idea at you, then you follow up with them and you don't hear back. This group has been, you know, very responsive to any phone calls or emails that I've had for them. I mean, I get the feeling they're, like I said, they're very committed and willing to do a lot of this legwork.
And the one lady did mention in the last meeting that she was willing to put the hammer down if anybody slacks on the boxes. So,
I remember that.
yeah, she was relentless. Have you seen any progressive growth from this community gardens, Tyler?
I'm sorry, do I see what?
Have you seen any progress on, have you worked with the community gardens in your past?
Yeah, it's
Have you
pretty common. It's
Seen
pretty
them successful?
Right, it's pretty common for a park department to oversee a project like this. I think especially in our case, as we look to expand our services and get a little larger footprint in the community, it could be a way for us to reach a group that we're not currently reaching.
Right. I personally think that, you know, they came in good faith, and I like the project as it was presented. Might have a few gaps here, but I think the community really needs it. I think it would be very, very worthwhile to invest in this and, you know, at least get it going. So I'd be in favor of supporting this.
I think you'd get a lot of community support on that.
I do too.
A lot of volunteers, a lot of it, so.
So kind of the holdup, you know, they've kind of been stalled. Well, one, the location. I think now if we can secure a location, we can start to discuss fundraising efforts. And like I said, they're willing to drive a lot of that. And help raise some of the funds necessary to get this thing going.
The only major concern that I don't see actually is the parking for that.
Right.
Where would they
I was,
park?
I was gonna bring that up, if I'm letting you guys talk. The way it's set up now, it's 75 by 100 feet. I think it has to go to the south a little bit more, because that corner lot with the aviation thing, I think we might be on their property. In the same way, if you see that shaded area, there's a culvert there. That might be on their property. We did that for the carnival and the fest that we had. That, we talked to Bob Davis, that might have to come further south. To take up the grass that's in that area is about $1,000 for the sod removal, because you can't get rid of the grass, they want to get rid of it, and they'll bring in organic soil for it, and the cost of the culvert, I don't know. I don't know, it won't be that much, but you got to consider that in with that $14,000. So that's going to be a little bit higher, but not that much, but just to let you guys know.
And it would be possible, Wayne, to get water from.
Well, the
No,
water
if it
main,
were- well,
the
hold
water
on.
main
What
is,
I'm saying is, if it was back over on Heartland,
what was
what
over there
about
where
the
the
what about
house
water
was,
from the barn?
you could go, you'd have to go across the street. Either way, you got to go across the entrance road, or the water main's on the other side of White Oak, so you'd have to bore it or whatever, and that could be costly.
How did that house have water?
That had well water.
Oh, so it's
Yeah.
all-
Yeah, it had its own well, septic system and all that. So the water main here is in between that blue line on that rectangle and the street. It's closer, it's real close to the street. There's a swale. It's easier to do that. We can tap our own main.
Right, but I see the parking being a major issue.
Well, yeah,
Because I'm a fan of this project. I'm not gonna lie to you,
right.
but the parking.
There is gravel there. You can see like the gray in the grassy area, but I think that's when I talked to Bob Davis, that's partially on that property next door. So we'd have to look at that and maybe move it. And there's gravel out there. The grass is in it, but I don't know how well that would be for cars.
I mean, if were able to move it, can we just make a gravel lot? If we had parking, we
You'd
could
have to
just-
cut, you'd have to excavate it down probably about 4 inches, 6 inches, and then put the gravel in.
That was something that we discussed, and Bob said that's something that we could potentially do in-house with some type of a grindings or similar, where it's more of a, just to see how this thing goes until we really know how successful or not successful it's going to be. It'd be more of like a temporary type lot. I don't foresee, 20 cars being there at once for something
True.
like this, so.
And you can park on 105th there. I mean, there is parking on that street, so.
It's a long walk for some people, but
Well, it's a community garden.
So I'm clear, and the board is clear. So are they looking for pretty much a commitment for the perimeter fence and the raised bed and the soil? As far as the expense?
I think we're looking for a commitment for this to be a park project at that location. And then, like I said, I can work with the group on their fundraising efforts for the project. And then again, this is something that, there's not much we can do now. If we get to late February and there's zero money raised and there's zero people signed up to participate in this, maybe we reevaluate. I don't foresee it.
I say we go with it.
I don't foresee it getting to that point based on like I said, the commitment level from this committee, and they made a few social media postings and the St. John pages that have garnered a lot of interest. So, yeah, I don't foresee that happening. But again, this is something that there's not much we can do the next couple of months anyway in terms of prep work for that site.
All right. I'd like to have consideration for the community garden project.
So what do we make a motion? Just keep-
To just,
To
just
to
green light it.
support this and let them put it at that new location.
That's it,
my-
yeah, just give it a green light, huh?
Yeah.
You think we should think about the parking though, like, just in case, like maybe move it farther east?
I think all of that, well, let's see if it
Right.
takes off.
Then we could worry about the logistics and all that a little
Yeah,
bit.
if they can do it,
Okay,
then yeah.
you made the motion?
Right, I asked for consideration for the community garden project.
Okay, I'll make a motion to green light that community garden project.
I'll second it.
Mr. Tyler?
That's a motion by Johnny Boersma, a second by Mike Moffett. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
What is your
Further
motion,
discussion?
To go ahead with the project at that
At that
location?
location, we're supporting that. To have a community garden in that location.
And I apologize, I'm not trying to, I'm just going back to kind of what they're proposing versus what their paperwork is proposing. Exactly what are you greenlighting? Just support of the project versus what they're putting out here in water and spigots and funding and all of that? I just want to clarify so that our record is clear
That's a,
for purposes of kind of what your understanding was from them of what I'm hearing from you was to allow them to proceed, you're supporting it and letting them find fundraising,
Right.
not that you're approving their proposal, correct?
Right.
Okay, just so that, I just want, and I apologize, I just.
no, I get it.
I'm looking at the documents that are in your packet and what.
Right.
That was the proposal they had put together. It's dated back in June.
Well, even this one, 2021 Gardner Agreement,
Right.
and if that's what you're supporting in that sense.
No.
It's just what I wanted to clarify is that it's what you had orally presented and not what's the documents here. I don't want you committing to putting in all of this by
Right.
that motion if that's not what your intention is.
I think that's kind of what I asked a minute ago, because you and Tyler, because I was like, what are we actually saying? It was like, we're gonna keep moving on it. We're gonna see if they can come up with the money.
Well, we're gonna take it step by step,
Kind of, we're
Tyler.
like saying,
and-
let's go to the next step, but we didn't really know how to word this. I don't know if we worded it right. 'Cause
I
if
could,
they don't
I'll,
come up
I'll
with-
word it the way I'm perceiving this is, we're saying, okay, to let's step this project in the right direction and let's see how it goes. If they do the fundraising and there's no problems and issues, correct? Is that what we,
We're
okay,
supporting it.
yeah.
And we're saying it's okay for the location that they've looked at, and I think we're okay with that.
The general areas, we might have to move it logistically.
Yeah, yeah.
And as Tyler put forth, if depending upon, that this would obviously come back before you in the spring or late winter, depending
Right,
upon what support they have to determine what
Right.
cost commitment
that's what I'm waiting for.
the park board would be making at that time.
Right, that's, because I asked, and I think they're looking for donations and that, and if not, we'll look at all that at that time.
Yeah, they want you to put in a water system.
Right,
So that's, and I get it, they're old proposals and all of that, but just wanted to clarify that that's what your green lighting is, as Tyler had presented verbally, and not necessarily approving their even 2021 proposal.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Sorry, go ahead with your vote then.
no,
Thank
thank you
you.
for the clarification.
Yeah.
We're good. With that, moving past the community garden project, we're gonna move to item 6, reports and correspondence, from board members. Johnny or Mike?
No. I just want to apologize to everybody for the last couple of months. So I was working long 12-hour days. So that's why I wasn't able to make it here. So I just want to apologize for that.
I'll mention the Babe Ruth project that's going on out there. Turf Dogs from Indianapolis is up here doing a project. We about a 2-week project. Basically, they're coming in the Babe Ruth field, which is the largest one, closest. Pretty much, it's in this picture. That's this one here. It's the closest one to White Oak. Basically, they're going in the whole infield. They've cut the whole thing out because every time it rained, it was like an island. Because where the playing surface was, it actually went down to the pitcher's mound. So the pitcher's mound is kind of like an island. Every time it rained, the water would build up. I mean, it was unplayable for days. Basically, they're coming in there. They cut out all the playing surface and the grass in the middle. They raised everything up. They're regrading everything. They're putting in drain tile. It's called a perimeter drain, basically right around the outfield or the infield. They put a drain. It's 2 foot deep. It has gravel on the bottom of it. Then that's where your drain tile is, with like a screening and dirt on top of that. I mean, they're pretty much they're going all out. They're not sparing any expense on it. We end up having to raise another $10,000 because there's a lot of grass and stuff that we're finding issues with out there. We're like, while we're here, let's just fix it up. So they should be done by Friday. And we'll
About a
need
week, yeah, you told me today, about a week.
that. Yeah,
They
so
took out some grass out of center field, and they put some drains out there in center field going out to the back by the fence.
we're always flooded.
Yeah, it should be a lot better.
It'll be much better. It'll be much
Yes.
better. So that's coming along good. Then some of the other 1 through 4 fields, since they're there, like I was saying, they're gonna replace a lot of sod out there where there's some low areas just to make it, look a little more presentable.
Nice, nice. I was gonna, anything else, Mike?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Johnny. And then, Johnny, what you were saying, I get that, but you've communicated with us, so, we're good. Appreciate all your input, involvement. I was just gonna comment that at the study session we held, last week, Thursday, we reviewed the master plan for the park. We reviewed the comprehensive financial plan, and at that time, it was just kind of reviewing. I think we have $1,700,000 in the fund. And then we discussed park projects for 2021. These are still items that we're looking at, and Tyler and I and you guys have discussed, and we're going to propose, hopefully maybe at the next meeting, things that the park board would like to focus for projects for 2021. And just commenting here, we had discussed acquiring land for parks, investigating community center. We talked about the Lake Hills Clubhouse, uh, skate park at the gates. We talked about permanent bathrooms at the gates. We also talked about the truck, which we discussed tonight, the park employee. We also commented and talked about Civic Park upgrades for next year. And that was pretty much it. So those were things that were on the study session that we discussed and talked about, and we'll be moving forward, hopefully at the next meeting on some of those items and seeing what we want to do. But I'm just putting that out there as the board, that we're able to get that accomplished at the study session.
Mention skate park.
Yeah, skate park for the gates. I think I did, maybe not. And then the permanent bathrooms.
I know
those were-
I know that I was absent again, but did we talk or discuss anything about the handicap swing in all the parks?
You know, I think we mentioned it.
Okay.
But I don't know that we had it on there, because I don't have that on my notes.
Yeah, that was something that John had sent me. So we have a few parks right now that are equipped with, handicapped, or they're called more of adaptive swing type seats now. They're about $800 each. I think we can look into adding them at some of our other parks.
Yeah, and we'll have that on the agenda then, if we decide. And those are things, like I said, we did discuss at the study session for 2021.
One of the things, Johnny, that we discussed was we have, as I'm sure you're aware, a ton of playgrounds, just
Yeah.
an unusual amount of playgrounds, 20 to be exact, for our town. Kind of moving forward, it's going to be a bit of I think a challenge for us to keep all those, in really good shape. I think that we have 5 or 6 right now that are nearing the end of their, useful life. So, making playground improvements, I think, will probably be an item on the budget every year.
Right. That's something that we have to address. If nothing else from the board, I'd like to go to item B there for staff. Staff comments.
Yeah, I got a few items. So our Boo Fest was held on Saturday, October 24th, from 10 to noon at Prairie West Park. We had trunk or treat vendors, train rides, games, and some pumpkin decorating. I just wanted to thank President Bovat for his help that day. It ended up being a really good turnout, and was a fun event. It was good to see people out and about. Also, our Visit with Santa event is scheduled for Wednesday, December 2nd from 6:30 to 7:30. This is our annual contribution to CSRI, which is an acronym for Cooperative Special Recreation Initiative. This is a cooperative initiative that involves several local park agencies to provide recreational opportunities to individuals of all ages who have special needs and abilities. We are reviewing the health department guidelines, and we'll submit a plan for the event. We're taking pre-registration, so we'll be able to limit the capacity that way, and be sure that we stay within the updated guidelines that came out recently. Updated COVID guidelines.
Good, that's good. Thank you for that, Tyler. Anything else?
Also, we have a Facebook page now. It's facebook.com/St. John Parks. That's St. John Parks.
Nice.
So if you're on there, be sure to like and share.
Absolutely. Just a comment on the Boo Bash, I thought it was pretty good too, and I was frightened at the Boo Bash. I seen some people with bear paraphernalia on, and that took me back a little bit. It kind of scared me, but anyway. I'm just saying. Moving on to Town Council Liaison. Was there anybody else from the staff? If not, Mr. Wayne Pondinas?
Over the course of the year, the Parks Department and the members accomplished a lot of different things. 3 basketball courts, repainted the sign at Heartland Park, all numerous things. A lot of residents are saying thank you, and they can see the change, and everybody did a fine job. We had summer help. They came out and they did a good job with Gabe's, cracking the whip on them, whatever, just kind of, everything worked out fine. We were lucky. We had good kids, a lot of good support. Tyler's fitting in now. He's doing a lot of good work, so a lot of good things to come up for 2021.
Well, appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Wayne. Moving on to item 7, payment of the bills. Consider payment of the bills in the amount of $55,069.03.
Make a motion to pay
Yeah.
the bills
Thank you.
in that amount.
I'll second that.
It's a motion by Mike Moffett, second by Johnny Boersma. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0.
Item 8, public comment. Any public comment tonight?
Anyone?
Item 9, adjournment. Consider adjournment for the park board.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's a motion by Johnny Boersma, second by Mike Moffett. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Good.